Aled, where did it all begin?
Well, it all began with Marian Dellis, actually, one of your previous contributors. I went to it was a sort of youth church meeting and youth club sort of thing. And she showed some of her work there and talked about photography. And at that time, I was thinking of becoming a helicopter pilot or something, or an engineer or something like that, something kind of quite technical. And I was doing, maths and physics and things. And but I saw that photograph of the old man stood in the doorway, and I thought that was the most amazing thing I'd ever seen. And it kind of completely changed my life, really, because I just thought photography. I didn't realize you could do such a thing with photography and be as sort of creative and it being such a wonderful thing. So I started there. I was a deck chair attendant in my summer holidays from school in Aberystwyth, and I saved up my money and I bought myself an Olympus OM1. And then I went to Plymouth College of Art and studied film and photography there.
So what was that period like studying? I mean, obviously, you said you have physics and maths and things, so they work with cameras, really, and light and understanding apertures and stuff like that. So how did you find studying those things in Plymouth? What sort of... I mean, were you drawn to one aspect or the other? Were you drawn to film camera work, or were you drawn to the still photography work?
Definitely stills photography work at the time, which is odd because then I've spent the last 25 years being a cameraman. But at the time, yeah, definitely stills photography. And I saw a Josef Koudelka exhibition, and even before I entered the room, looking at it through the doorway, I was kind of inspired instantly, and I thought, right, this is the sort of work I want to do, being a photojournalist. And at the time, Plymouth College of Art were training commercial photographers to go to London to do magazine work and assistants to the commercial film world. So I found myself on the wrong course, really. So I was doing, pictures of perfume bottles where really I wanted to be back home in the miners' strike, which was happening at the time in South Wales. And so it was really frustrating. And I did take the odd weekend off to come back, but it was frowned upon there because they weren't interested at all in that sort of aspect of photography. So yeah, I went on to, after leaving college, then came back to Aberystwyth for a bit. But the revolutions in Eastern Europe started, and I missed the fall of the Berlin Wall, but went instead first of all to Vienna to stay with a friend of mine from school, Ruth Jane. She was an au pair out there. And then when things started kicking off in Prague, I caught the train up to... and as I arrived in Wenceslas Square with my rucksack on the back, it was students in the street chanting, and there were, riot police. It was just fantastic. The atmosphere was amazing right from the word go. And they'd closed the airport so nobody could get in. So I found myself, being one of the very few foreigners in Prague right at the beginning of the revolution. And I was at the Magic Lantern Theatre when Václav Havel declared he was going to stand as opposition to the communist regime. So it was all kind of quite exciting, really.
Were you on assignment then, or were you just winging it?
I was winging it, as I have done for most of my life, really. I've made a career out of it, I think. Yeah, it was fantastic. Really enjoyed it. That was 1989. 1990, went to, Poland and Hungary and travelled around there quite a bit. 1991 in Kurdistan, taking photographs for the British Red Cross. They wanted to document how the aid sort of left London, Stansted Airport, and then arrived at the sharp end, up in the mountains of Kurdistan. Because during the, obviously, First Gulf War, the coalition forces turned back, and then Saddam Hussein turned on the Kurds, and they were, they had to flee. So they fled into Turkey and into Iranian Kurdistan, and that's where I was. And I was there trying to help out as well, because there was convoys of aid coming over from Turkey, and they needed sorting out. So I kind of ended up being a sort of bit of an aid worker as well, which I quite enjoyed. But on my return, the translator and I and the driver, we drove to the airport. And in Iran, you have something like 5 different sort of police forces. You've got military police, you've got the civilian police, you've got the religious police, and and others. And we got stopped in the roadblock. There was some sort of confusion. They'd never seen a Westerner before. I had a bag full of cameras and a tape recorder. So I was arrested for being a spy with these, there was sort of a military police, then taken to a military compound. And I was then tried as a spy and crimes against the state and sentenced to death by hanging. So, but luckily, this was myself and the translator, but the driver got away and he managed to raise the alarm. So within a couple of days, the head of the Red Crescent, a guy called Mr. Adi, he flew up from Tehran and walked into my cell and said, "Don't worry, I've got $2,000 in my pocket, I'll get you out of here." So I had to be out by midnight that day because my visa ran out at midnight, so that would complicate things. So I came out on a Hungarian cargo plane flying to Budapest in the end. And then when I got back to London, then they said, do you know what? I mean, we had this problem last week with the Belgian photographer. So I think it was kind of a money-making scam, really. Not that I realised this at the time, Yeah, so that was quite an eventful thing. But, it was kind of part and parcel of being a photojournalist, I think, that's what I signed up for in a way, So, and then after that, I went to Romania, more or less straight away. And then spring of '92, I went to Bosnia with another photographer, Pete Telfer. And we we were with the Croatian army in Croatia and northern Bosnia. So, and then after that,
were these obviously the Red Cross was a specific a job.
Yeah.
Were you selling these pictures on then? I mean, on the previous revolutions you were witnessing, were you selling your pictures on to agencies or to newspapers?
Yeah, both really. Yeah, okay, yeah. Right. And but funny enough, the even the stuff with Prague, I was kind of quite proud of the stuff I did there, but. The pictures I sold were, I got one sort of silhouette of a couple kissing by the bridge in Prague. And that sold, really well, whereas my pictures of us at travel haven't sold. Because there were no photographs to go in travel articles and things like that were, because the East was opening up, they were desperate for photographs of, Prague, contemporary ones. Yeah. So I had some nice shots of, trams and things like that. That sold really well, and the thing of people chanting in the streets or anything, unfortunately. So I kind of failed a little bit there, but some of them sold, and I was kind of quite proud of the work I did out there, really. And I'm really kind of terrible at marketing myself as well. I should have, pushed it a bit more. But you're kind of on to the next assignment, really. So
it must have been one hell of a buzz then.
Yes, I think that's what I enjoyed about it, and still do. I still do conflicts. I've been to the West Bank and Israel twice this year so far already. I've been to Afghanistan twice. I was in Helmand province in the Sangin Valley and up on the Pakistan-Afghan border in 2011 with the American Special Forces. And 2 years ago, September, I was in Kabul doing a documentary for S4C. So I've got a hostile environment qualification, which is what you have to get insurance to go to these places. So I get the odd call to go to, these countries. So, and I really enjoy it as well. It is a nice buzz, I must say.
Yeah. Do you think the camera isolates you from what's going on around you, or does it help in any way?
I think you're right. It does, when you do bring the camera up to your eye, it does sort of filter out what you see in a kind of strange sort of way. But I also enjoy the friendships that you make and the sort of, getting to know people and understanding conflicts and also trying to help in my own way, really. When I was doing stuff in the revolutions in Eastern Europe and in Kurdistan and Bosnia, I thought, I could, change the world with a photograph. You're sort of young and kind of naive, but you kind of, as you get older, you kind of understand that it's you're part of maybe a campaign or something, or now you're a very small cog in a big machine. But no, I think, if there are injustices like there are in the West Bank, I do try and cover those and publicise them. the reason why I was in the West Bank in April was we were doing 4 films for FIFA out there, FIFA football, and one of them was about the Palestinian women's football team, which was kind of a fantastic thing. Really, spoke to the captain of the team, and she, amazing woman, and she was saying how the football sort of gets the girls out of the houses, out of the homes, and they don't wear the hijab or anything, so they kind of, it gives them confidence and self-esteem, and now the people who've come in up through the football team ranks are now sort of getting really good jobs in the government and in aid agencies, and really fulfilling their potential as people. It just gives them that extra confidence.
When you were working, when you'd left Plymouth and you were going on your travels and you were going to these conflict areas, I mean, presumably you didn't have any minders or people to look after you.
I do these days, though. It was really funny because as a cameraman, you kind of get much better, get looked after much better. I was in Côte d'Ivoire about 2 years ago, doing something for the UN, and they actually gave me a personal bodyguard.
Okay. But there were no such things when you were in your younger days working as a pure photojournalist?
No, not at all. No. You just went there, and it's basically...
looking for trouble.
Yeah, find out where the shooting is and then drive there, basically, kind of crazy thing you do when you're young, really.
How did you cope? I mean, that's quite stressful, really, but how did you cope with all that, Aled?
I don't know. Well, maybe I didn't cope with it. I don't know. Maybe I'd be a completely different person if I hadn't gone. I think, you either can do it or you don't, really. I think it's something that in your mindset, really, that you kind of keep yourself together and persevere. And I think it's because I've had, experience of it before. When we were in Afghanistan, in Kabul 2 years ago, the director that we had, I don't know if you should say this, really, but he lost the plot a little bit, because he hadn't been in a conflict before. He lied and said that he had been, but he hadn't. And then so it was up to myself and the contributor then to get him through, really. And I don't know if we did a good job or not, I don't know. But it's, a stressful environment. You don't know how you're going to cope until you're actually in one, really. And because I built up to it, with stuff in Eastern Europe and then Kurdistan and then Bosnia, I think, it's sort of, your own limitations. And I think, I don't go, I've got 2 kids now as well, so I don't really go looking for trouble anymore. But I think I'm fairly confident that I can cope with, situations where, conflicts are.
So how are you dealing with people? What was the trick with dealing with people when you were in that sort of situation? Were you using specific things? Because I find humour and talking to people is a great thing, but when you don't have that communication going on, it gets a bit difficult. It does. Every situation is different, but I think you still need to try and communicate international sign languages sort of thing, And eye contact and all
eye contact, and just, talking to them, and then they'll talk back to you. And, it's strange in that sort of situation where sometimes you might be reliant on these soldiers to keep you alive or something. It's still, you need to get that communication going, definitely. Some sort of empathy with them, and I think... Yeah, you have to do that. You have to be kind of quite outgoing person, really. I think I was probably too outgoing, but
humour also helps, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
When people are smiling, it's a lot easier.
It is, to deal with. Yeah.
So, you're working as a photojournalist, having a great time, going to all these amazing places, selling your work, and then you stop.
Yeah.
What caused the stop?
I think it was after I came back from Bosnia, really, and
what had things happened in Bosnia?
Well, it was, it was very. Just think that it's kind of on your doorstep, really, and to think that the atrocities that went on there. Both myself and Pete Telfer, I was with, we didn't go back to photography. We kind of moved on. I became a cameraman then. I sort of turned my back on photography. I didn't take a photograph for about 13 years. Until I took some snaps of the kids as they were growing up and things, their little digital camera. But my Nikon F3s and motor drives were bookends on the shelf, and that's where they are to this day. So, yeah, I was reviewing an exhibition in the Tate in Liverpool about the history of the photograph and the written word, and how the photograph started off illustrating articles, and they were quite small, and to, now, photographs can be the main story, with captions as the written part of it. And then I was introduced in the items Aled Jenkins as a photographer, and I thought, well, gosh, I haven't actually taken a photograph in 13 years. I really should do something about this. And I decided to buy a Hasselblad Expand 2, but not use it. I liked the format, it appealed to me. And if you they've stopped making them now, but if you went to the Hasselblad website, it was landscape photographs of the Alps or, the Antarctic or something. But I knew I could use it in a kind of as a photojournalist sort of tool. So, yeah, for the last 10 years or so, it's been with me on, all my foreign assignments. Whether it's been used or not is another thing. But, yeah, 2005, 2006 to 2011, I spent a lot of time in Africa, Madagascar, Zambia, Malawi, Ethiopia, Morocco, all over Western Africa, Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, all the countries really. And it's been with me, it's been my constant companion. And, when you stick it on, that is kind of a bit of people go, oh, right, well, that's nice, what is that? Or some people, I've had it around my neck, and people have come up to me and said, Hasselblad Expand 2, which is, and I go, right, so it's suddenly, there's a link there. And I was coming out of a diner in New York with Catherine Emma Davis and Dylan Yowes a couple of years ago, and there was a guy there with a camera, and I started talking to him, and he said, Expand 2. And then that opened up a new world. If you go around the corner, it's a great place to take a shot, and,
Right, okay, yeah.
So it's kind of an icebreaker as well.
Yeah, yeah. And do you shoot in black and white or colour, or do you have a preference?
Well, I started out just shooting in black and white until I went to Afghanistan in 2011. Mainly because I didn't have any film, and when I got the call, can you go tomorrow? And I was in Heathrow and in Boots, and I just bought all the colour film that they had there, and I thought, well, colour film better than nothing. And I was really disappointed that I was not going to make this amazing piece of black and white work in Afghanistan. I'm really glad I did, because the colours out there were kind of muted, this kind of moon dust type stuff that flies around, kind of, mutes everything into sort of like a haze. And I think you get a real sense of being there with the colour stuff. And sometimes, I was with some Afghan policemen for a few days, and they really liked sort of sticking bits of flowers in their helmets and stuff like that. They're really kind of, out there type stuff, and it was lovely, and so I took photographs of them, and again, having a camera with me, I was filming them, but having a stills camera also was kind of a great icebreaker as well,
we get a sort of a very filtered view, I guess. How did you find the people and the country?
Well, I think one thing that struck me about Afghanistan, it was walking through the villages in the Sangin Valley and up in the mountains. It's one of the, if not the poorest country I've ever been to. Poverty is just and that's the underlying problem, really, because a lot of the men will, the Taliban will pay them $100 a month or something if you come and fight with us. Whereas, we're pouring billions of dollars into arming the British and the coalition forces out there. And for instance, when I was with the Americans, we came under sniper fire from a hill, and so we just called in an A-10, and they just sort of blasted the hill. I don't know whether we got them or not. I don't know, and I'm sure we didn't, because they were quite adept of knowing the tactics of the Americans, where they were going to go and what they were going to do before the Americans did. But, that airstrike would have cost something like probably $40,000, whereas if they'd kind of, built a school or something, or a classroom with that money, it would have changed, the whole thing. So it was absolutely no way you could see right from the day one that this anything was going to be resolved through conflict. And I don't think anything really does get resolved through conflicts. I think it's, just look at the peace negotiations in Northern Ireland. It's sitting around the table, really, and getting two sides talking. And, Afghanistan is an extreme example of how not to conduct a war, really. So, when you are in the middle of it and see it for yourself, it's completely different to, watching it on telly and reading about it.
It's really interesting because there was a conversation, actually. I was in the car driving down to Cardiff, and there was a conversation on 5 Live about 5 photographs that have recently been taken in Baton Rouge.
Yes.
And they are extraordinary photographs. There are 2 in particular that stand in my mind. Is the girl standing in front of the stormtroopers waiting to be handcuffed. And there's another guy with his eyes and he's just being pressed into the floor. The power of that individual image. Is there any individual image that stands out in your mind that you've seen that maybe another photographer's taken that really summed up a situation completely?
You do get the iconic photographs, don't you, from every conflict, I think. The recent ones of the young boy on the beach in Turkey, But now I thought that would change people's attitudes, and it did for a very small amount of time. And, I think photography like that does still play a massive role in the way people perceive situations and conflicts. Even now, in the sort of the world of social media and, television reporting, one photograph can still unite people and sum up a conflict or sum up a situation. It's fantastic. I can't think of one off the top of my head.
That's all right.
I should have done my research.
In this day and age, photographs are 10 a penny, and everybody is a photographer, and lots of kids go to universities to study to be photojournalists. Do you think that's the right way to go for kids who want to study photography?
Do you know what? I asked that question to David Bailey when he came and did a talk in Plymouth when I was a student. Do you think I should be here, or do you think I should be out taking pictures? And he was just as confused as I am now, really, because he just said, I just do what you like, really. I said, yeah, okay, fine. I'm not quite like it in college, so I'll do this for a bit. So, I don't know, it is a way of finding your feet. When I was at Plymouth, we had a fantastic history of art lecturer, Graham, and he was sort of, I think I'd learned more about being a photographer from him than any of the other lecturers I had. I can't even remember their names, but I remember his lectures. They really stand out in my mind, and the way that he taught us about composition from using Renaissance paintings and stuff like. We all know about it, but he actually made the whole thing real and taught us about sort of things like the Bauhaus and early 20th century photography. I think that sort of expanded my mind more than anything. So I think that aspect of it, certainly you should go to college, or maybe you should just get out and do it, because it is practice that makes it in the end, isn't it? I think anyway. But you've got to have the resolve, to do it. But
has your style changed in any way, or did your style change in any way when you were a photographer?
Yes, my early black and white stuff, I think, were of a certain kind. And I think when I came back to photography then, after the 13-year gap, I think it is a much more mature style. I think it is kind of, I am thinking about it a bit more, using sort of the landscape format of the Hasselblad X-Man 2. You can work with it, in a much better sort of way than using the traditional 35mm format. And I really love taking photographs with it, And then I bought a Hasselblad 6x6 about a year and a half ago to go to Patagonia. Now I'm really getting into that. The recent assignments, I've just taken that with me and really enjoyed, doing stuff with that. Yeah. But I mean, most of my work, we've spoken about photography, but you got to remember my daytime job, which is being a cameraman, really. And I could go to do half a dozen foreign assignments, and I do about between a dozen and maybe 18, 24 assignments a year. I can do half a dozen without taking a photograph. So mainly because your client is paying you rather a lot of money to get you to a China or whatever. Then if he's looking at you, why are you taking those pictures? Why aren't you filming for the program that you're supposed to be being paid?
But has the still work influenced the way you shoot with? I mean, I know it's a different skill and there's different things involved, but has it influenced the way you?
Oh, definitely, yeah, definitely. I think you're coming from a stills background is a huge advantage when you go into doing camera work. The cameras I use now, I've got a Sony F5. I use prime lenses. I use a 15, 25, 35, 15, 85 prime lenses as my main thing. And I've got a couple of zoom lenses as well, but everything is now shot on a 35mm chip. So the image is what you would have seen through a 35mm, stills camera. And people are using 7Ds and 5Ds as movie cameras these days anyway. Yeah, no, but I was kind of one jump ahead of the other cameramen because of my photography background, I think, which kind of gives you just have to have a certain advantage, in any sort of profession, really. And then obviously everybody caught up pretty quick, but then you use the same sort of composition skills to do film work now with the sort of widescreen kind of format anyway, as you do with my expand, so it kind of they complement each other.
So let's jump ahead then, Aled. When it comes to retire, Aled, and you don't, and you're not being a film cameraman anymore. Will stills take over your life again? Do you think?
I enjoy doing both, and I think probably stills will become more part of my life. I hope it will, anyway. Because and I'd like to do some documentaries as well, because I think I'm a documentary kind of filmmaker, photographer, I think, and I enjoy both.
Yeah. I know you've exhibited, but another exhibition of your work surely is on the cards somewhere, Aled.
I'd love to do one. I'd like to do something, and I'd like to get my, myself motivated to organise something, because I think in the last 10 years with the Expand, and I don't like to go back and dwell on the older stuff. That is a part of my life that I've moved on from. So I think I look at my photographs and they kind of start now in about 2006. And so we've done 10 years now.
That's pretty harsh, though, isn't it? Not to look back at the stuff you were doing when you were much younger.
Yeah, some of the sort of... they're not nice from a historical point of view, maybe, but they don't do anything for me anymore. And I also think that I like the photographs I've just taken, Yeah. And anything over than 10 years old, I think, great, you're fine, brilliant. And then some of them have been in exhibitions, and I think it's time to move on, really. So I'm moving on, and I've just done 2 weeks in Sydney on a commercial for Emirates Airlines, and the films arrived back day before yesterday, and now I'm kind of looking at those thinking, oh yeah, I quite like one or two of these, I might get these printed. So that's what's exciting me at the moment, and I think that's what the thrill that I get out of photography is, that photograph that you're taking, you've just taken or you're about to take.
So do you speak to Marian? Let's go full circle.
Have
you discussed your work that you've done with Marian at all?
Do you know, I see her occasionally at the Eisteddfod. We should really get together and have a bit of a chat. But no, I'll keep an eye on her. Her book on Essentially is fantastic. I loved. I was there filming, funnily enough, last September for Austrian television. Didn't take any pictures, but I met the people that she'd photographed. Yeah, so I keep an eye on her and see what she's up to. And she's still doing fantastic work, which is great.
It's funny that sort of mentoring aspect of the work that we do, and passing stuff on. Do you mentor anybody? Quite feverishly. There's a couple of kids and live on the corner. One's just graduated from Manchester University, and another one lives in Bristol at the moment, and they pop round and ask advice and stuff. They've been over to Turkey to do a project about the immigrants and them coming over, and so they're kind of trying to follow them from Turkey to the UK. They were asking bits of advice, and I pointed them in directions of a couple of websites that might be interested in their photographs. So and it's a nice feeling, because I'd love to be there myself. I'd love to go with them, but it's nice to be able to lend a hand. Whether they take my advice or not, I don't know.
But whether it's relevant, I have no idea.
Yeah.
As you say, it's good to pass the knowledge on.
You'd been through your course. You, by default, you said that the person that had the greatest influence on you was a man who taught you art history. And you were going to Vienna and you were going to explore this world that was happening and all the things that were kicking off at that time. I don't think... I have my doubts whether young people would... Are young people still doing that sort of thing? Are they being not trained, but are they being taught about these things? Is it something you can teach, or is it something that's in your blood and you need to go?
I think you have to have resolve and faith in yourself that you can do it, because going on a foreign assignment, and it's a bit like, whether it was a photography foreign assignment in the old days or a documentary that I'm shooting in maybe I'm going to China next week now to shoot a doc out there. It's a one big problem-solving exercise, really, because the odds of you getting anything are completely stacked up against you right from the word go. Before you even get on the plane, you need a visa. You need to be able to be, obviously calm in situations where other people may not be. But also, you just need to have that foresight, and also you need to be able to see where you're going, where you want to be at the end of it as well. So you really need to think it out properly. And I think, maybe perhaps on some of the assignments I've done, I've not really had the experience maybe in the early days of thinking, where am I going to end up? How am I going to get back even, But I think, you need to be prepared to be flexible, but also you need to be prepared.
Single-minded.
And single-minded, yeah.
Blinkered, almost.
Yes, and because as a photographer, you're on your own, And I think that's what got me a little bit at the end, because you couldn't phone up someone and say, I need a helicopter, I need a helicopter to get me out of here right now. You can't do that as a photographer, but when you're a film crew, you can do that because you're insured, Every foreign assignment I do, if there's anything goes wrong, there's a way out. There's everybody does a risk assessment, and in that risk assessment, if anything goes wrong, they pull you out. When I was in Afghan film, I was with Tiger Aspect, which is a London company doing a doc for the BBC. Yeah, every day you check in about 5 times a day, but every day if you'd go out on patrol or something, and then you'd make sure if anything did go wrong, there would be someone on the other side of the phone sorting out the mess, which is great. And that's the beauty of being a television cameraman, really. You're part of a team, which is insured, but also that team back and base, they've got money as well, to make it happen. They can sign a check or hire a helicopter with a credit card, whereas you can't do that as a photographer. So that is a big difference, really.
Are there kind of any real standout moments from your time as a stills photographer that really stick in your mind, that they were... obviously when you were jailed, and it's a bit difficult to top that one, but are there sort of standout moments, sort of people to people moments that you actually thought, no, that's why I'm doing the job?
I just to isolate one of them, because I was lucky enough to be a photojournalist in a time where there was a lot happening in the world. There are dozens, really, because I loved my job very much. And I'm very much I love sort of finding out what's over the next hill if I'm going for a walk, or or what's around the next corner. And constantly. It could be like a shopkeeper that you're buying cigarettes for, to have on, so you can give them to the soldiers that you're travelling with, so they kind of get that banter. Or it could be stopping by a roadside for some food, or just helping refugees onto your, sticking them in the back of the car and getting them to the next town so they can, it's every day is kind of full of experiences and that you'll remember for the rest of your life. Really.
So there must be a book somewhere. There must be.
Well, Well, even the last 10 years as a cameraman, I've really enjoyed it as well.
Yeah. Do you keep a diary?
No, I don't. I'm trying, my X-Pan is my diary, really, when I was kind of looking for photographs for you boys today, I could see, that was 2010, was it? It was sort of, they're all there, but they're date-wise, or maybe there's a call sheet somewhere on the computer to say that, I went to, I've done something like 8 or 9 trips to Venice, which is one of my favourite cities, working. So, I've got a nice body of work about Venice. So, but I wouldn't be able to tell you what picture was taken when, unless I look at metadata on the disc.
Yeah, that's another issue, of course, is keeping stuff, I guess. You must have reams of negatives.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, boxes. Absolute boxes full of it. It does take over a little bit between the sort of photography equipment and then the television camera equipment with tracks and cranes and lights and stands and everything,
It's a lot simpler with a still camera.
It is a lot simpler, yeah, definitely. But, no, and the funny thing is to go back to, I went to Plymouth College of Art to be a commercial photographer and then becoming a photojournalist and then a documentary filmmaker. Now back sort of doing commercials and something I really enjoy doing, I've just, as I mentioned, been to Sydney to shoot a commercial for Emirates, and I spent a lot of time mostly in Dubai in the winter, film because of the weather, filming commercials out there. And I've got another one coming up now in September in Copenhagen and New York. So, I think as I get older, maybe when you cross your, hand account, if you're 50, that you kind of think, do you know what, I quite like an easier, not easier life, but it just changes really. I'm still running around, and quite often take the stealth camera with me, but I'm still running around like a mad fool. But it's a different life really now. And
if somebody gave you the opportunity, Aled, go away for a month with your X-Pan, we want you to go there to shoot. Because we've seen your stuff, we want you to do a shoot for us. And you were allowed to go anywhere in the world. Where would you return to, or where would you go?
Oh, I think I'd go back to Patagonia, I did 3 trips there in a year, last year and the year before, over a period of a year. And I enjoyed it immensely. And I was in Bolivia a couple of years ago. So South America, I think I just go through South America. Really enjoyed it. So yeah, I'm lucky enough to do between sort of, a dozen and maybe 20 foreign assignments a year with between the commercials and the documentaries. So you get a little, sometimes you fly in for 3 or 4 days, say to Berlin or somewhere to do something, do an interview. Recently I was in San Francisco for a couple of days and I think, I'd like to go back there. So it's a nice way of kind of just doing a little recce. And so when I do eventually give it all up, I think, right, I know exactly where I'm going. But no, definitely South America was top of my list, I think. I love Patagonia because, I spend over 6 months of the year being a foreigner in a foreign land. When I went to Patagonia, I felt at home because I could speak the language. Walking down the street, I could have a conversation in Welsh with people. People just turn to you and automatically presume you speak Welsh. So, and so you're having a conversation back with them. But, and I found them really kind of friendly and open but also I just felt at home there. I could quite easily live there. And it's an extraordinary feeling because I'm always struggling with language or food or, culture and stuff. But, I'm a minister's son from West Wales. So I went to chapel there and, opened the hymn book, and it was like being back home, it was just as a young boy. Yeah. So, and even the people kind of reminded me of the people back in West Wales as well. So it was a wonderful experience, and I think, I'd go back there.
Lots of stills people are now actually doing video as part of their thing. They do it for Media Wales. Media Wales have to shoot video as well as do stills. How do you see that all working and panning out? Can you see?
Yeah, well, things have changed a lot since I become a cameraman. I bought my first television camera in 2001. And I spent £100,000 on, the camera, the lenses and the monitors and everything. And, I had to put my house up as collateral for it. And my house wasn't even worth half that. Well, it was worth about 3/4 that maybe at the time. So it was kind of a difficult thing to do. Not everybody. It was kind of a bit of a closed shop, really, in a privileged place because of that. Because nobody else could do this job. You had to be hired because you had the equipment. Whereas these days, you can make a documentary. They shot a series of House, didn't they, in America, on a 5D just to prove a point. So anyone can pick up a stills camera and flick the sort of 4K video on these days, and make a documentary. So how does that, so that kind of opens it up to everybody, really. So yeah, there, competition out there for myself is kind of quite stiff at the moment, But, a lot of television programs do cost a lot of money to make. So they like to look at people who have got a bit of a track record, who've done it before, and who have maybe worked in Africa or worked in China, and so they got a bit of experience. So I might be at the moment a little bit ahead of the game, but people are catching up quite quickly. Actually, that camera that's sat over in the corner over there, my television camera. In the old days, you could get sort of like 6-7 years out of a $100,000 camera. Well, now, the price of that, you've probably about $25,000 sitting there. But in about 2 years' time, they'll be completely obsolete. So I have to keep reinvesting in my camera equipment, and then there are people coming up behind me as well. So it's sort of, it's getting more interesting. But I'm still managing to make a living, luckily.
Yeah, but the paradox is that you're still using, when you take your Hasselblad out, it's film. It's where. What is the joy in that then? What is the thing that ticks the box in your head? What makes you tingle when you use that camera? Well,
I'm using the latest technology when it comes to 4K video filmmaking equipment. But there is something fantastic about going back to film, and then to actually use those chemicals and the light falling on light-sensitive material to create an image, and it's just harking back to the old life, I suppose, and it's still holding on to that. So no, and it's and I'm one of the few people. I don't know anyone else actually who uses film still. I remember being in an airport putting everything through those X-ray machines, and there was about 10 of them in a row. A roll of film sort of came out of one of the bags, bounced along the floor, and went down about 4 carousels to where my sound man was, and he picked it up and he said, "There's only one person in this room that this belongs to, and that's you, Aled, because I don't know anyone else who would have a film camera." So in the old days, obviously there'd be loads in there. So, but no, there's something really nice about using film and loading the film up. Especially on the 6x6 camera, and hoping that everything goes all right.
Photography in Wales, I suppose photography really is sort of universal, which is its great joy. But we, as Ffoton, are here in Wales. We try to reflect and talk to people who are photographers or have been photographers or live and work in Wales. What's your kind of take on what's happening in Wales photographically?
I think at the moment is a very exciting time to be a photographer in Wales. There's so much appreciation for it. And, when I was still a photographer, you really had to go to London to get any sort of recognition, really.
Yes, all work for the camera.
Oh, yeah. But, these days, there's so much going on. With the Eye Festival, Fine Beginning and Photon, I think, raising the profile of photography and the work that they've done in the last few years has been fantastic. It's done much more for to raise the profile of photography than photo galleries done in 40 years. So it's wonderful to be, a photographer in Wales at the moment, because there's just so much going on.
Do you think we need a permanent sort of photographic gallery in Wales, or is that pie in the sky?
Oh, it would be wonderful to get a photo gallery type thing that reflects photography in Wales and Welsh photography specifically. I recently saw a tweet from Photo Gallery how they were kind of up in the northeast of England, checking out new talent in the northeast of England, which is a fantastic thing for them. But I don't think they've ever checked out new talent in the northeast of Wales. So it's rather sad that they keep sort of, looking to Scandinavian or Lithuanian photographers, or they've published books by Italian photographers where, Welsh photography, photo gallery is something that they kind of seem to, definitely takes second place, and they need to, prioritise it much more, because I think, with all the other stuff that's going on, they're kind of being left behind, really. And the photographers that I speak to don't really have anything much to do with photo gallery, whereas, with so much going on, it's such a shame, really.
You now work as a film camera, and you go to conflict areas all over the world. Do you meet young photographers, still photographers? Do you get the chance to talk to young photographers that are working those areas, or do you not meet them at all?
Not really, no. I don't do frontline stuff anymore. I'm usually going in to do a specific project, maybe, raising a profile of an NGO or something like that. And I'd be hired in to do that specific job. So I don't really meet other photographers or cameramen. Most of my work in the last few years has just been sort of documentaries, maybe, and I do travel shows and stuff like that. So I don't really do the sort of
the hard
stuff anymore. No.
Yeah. There's another interesting thing I didn't pick up on that time when I think your last assignment you went out with two of you working together as stills photographers. How did you find that buddy approach to working an area or working a story?
Well, myself and Pete.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, some of our photographs look a little similar, but no, I think it was kind of safety in numbers, really. I'll go if you go, and it was that really that inspired us. But usually you work alone anyway.
Yeah, it is a lonely profession.
Yeah, and that's what kind of, the main difference between working as a photographer and working as a cameraman.
Yeah, you've got your sound guy anyway.
You got your sound guy, you got a producer and a director, and then, there's four of you in the car. Yeah. I'm doing a series for SOC at the moment with Dylan Yarwest and Catherine M.S. Davis, where we go around the world. We just done a documentary about the Spanish Civil War, and we were in Israel recently, and we're going to China and Morocco, Trinidad, and we've got all these places lined up for the next couple of months. So, and there's three of us, in the car, and there can be 2 weeks on the road, and it's great, it's fantastic. It's a really enjoyable assignment. Whereas if I was a photographer doing the same job, I'd be on my own again, and I went around Poland for a month after the wall went down to see how things had changed there. I didn't speak to anyone hardly at all because nobody spoke English, and it kind of gets to you after a while, I think, No, I love I love the work I did as a photographer, but I also enjoy the banter as a cameraman because, these days, the foreign assignments I do, because I've been doing it for such a long time, I tend to do with people I've known for a very long time. So we were old friends. Went to Sydney with a producer that I've known for the last 5 or 6 years. Done a lot of work together. So we just get on with it, and do it. And then the sound men I work with the same sort of 4 or 5 guys, and we know each other really well.
And it's all pre-planned, of course.
All pre-planned, yeah.
It's not, where can I find the next still shot, is it really?
No, exactly.
It's all laid out beforehand. You know exactly what you're going to do, how you're going to go about it, yeah. And
also, if you're working on a documentary that's not being financed, it's being privately financed, and, the producer and the director have gone through the sort of last 3 years raising money for it. You haven't had to do any of that, and then they've arranged all the hotels and and who we're going to meet and everything. And then I come in at the end and going, oh hey, here I am, and off we go to the airport, and then we film it. So you can see the torment in their faces and the joy when everything's over. And then I just say, yeah, I've got going off to Bulgaria next week to do something about skiing out there, or whatever. Not that I've done anything Bulgarian skiing, but it's sort of you just move on to the next assignment. So it's a bit of a cop out, really. It's very much more enjoyable than trying to set it up all on your own.